The untold story of Pakistan's most powerful woman, the woman who ruled from the shadows. Welcome to the History in the Shadow. If you like our content, then please like our video and subscribe our channel. Imagine a woman so powerful that generals trembled before her. Ministers sought her approval, and the fate of millions rested in her delicate hands. She never held official office, never wore a uniform, never gave public speeches. Yet she controlled an entire nation from the shadows. Her name was whispered in the corridors of power, feared in military barracks, and celebrated in elite drawing rooms. This is the forbidden story of the woman who became Pakistan's invisible empress, a story of love, betrayal, power, and the price of ambition. Welcome to the untold tale of the Shadow Empress. Chapter 1. The Rise of the Enchantress. The mysterious beginnings. In the bustling streets of Karachi, 1965, a young woman stepped off a train with nothing but dreams and devastating beauty. Her name was Sultana Begum, but history would remember her by a different title, the Shadow Empress. Born to a middle-class family in Lahore, Sultana possessed three weapons that would reshape Pakistan's destiny: intelligence that could unravel any political mystery, charm that could melt the hardest military heart, ambition that knew no bounds. The first conquest. Her entry into the corridors of power began at a diplomatic reception in Islamabad. While other women gossiped about fashion, Sultana studied the power dynamics, memorized every face, and identified her target: General Ahmad Hassan, the most influential military leader in the country, known for his iron discipline and immunity to feminine charms. As the evening progressed, Sultana orchestrated a seemingly accidental encounter. When the general's drink spilled on her elegant sari, she didn't react with anger, but with a mysterious smile that would haunt his dreams. "General Sahib," she said softly, her voice like silk, "perhaps this is destiny's way of introducing us." Those words marked the beginning of Pakistan's most dangerous love affair. The seduction of power. Within months, the Iron General was completely under her spell. But Sultana's genius lay not in simple romance. It was in her ability to make powerful men feel more powerful in her presence. She became his secret advisor, analyzing military strategies with razor-sharp insight, providing political intelligence from her growing network, suggesting personnel changes that consolidated his power. The general never realized he was becoming her puppet. As their relationship deepened, so did her influence. Late-night strategy sessions in her lavish apartment became the real seat of power in Pakistan. While the official cabinet met in government buildings, the real decisions were made in the intimate glow of her drawing room. Chapter 2. The Network of Influence. Building the invisible empire. Sultana understood that one powerful lover wasn't enough. She needed a network. With the general's protection, she began cultivating relationships across the power spectrum. Her weekly salons became legendary. Cabinet ministers competed for invitations, business tycoons brought gifts and secrets, foreign diplomats sought her counsel, journalists begged for exclusive interviews. The seduction strategy was sophisticated. She never offered herself, she offered access. Access to the general, access to information, access to the real power brokers. The minister's weakness. Her next major conquest was Minister Rashid Ali, the head of finance. Unlike the general, the minister was a family man with everything to lose. Sultana's approach was masterful. At a charity gala, she approached him not as a seductress, but as a concerned citizen worried about Pakistan's economic future. "Minister Sahib," she said, her eyes filled with patriotic fervor, "I may be just a woman, but I have ideas that could save our nation's economy." The minister, flattered by her apparent respect for his expertise, agreed to a private meeting to discuss her proposals. That meeting lasted 6 hours. By dawn, the minister had not only shared classified budget information, but had also fallen completely under her intellectual spell. He convinced himself it was patriotic duty, not dangerous attraction. The spider's web expands. Within 2 years, Sultana had woven an invisible web that captured Pakistan's entire power structure. The military wing. General Hassan, her primary lover. Brigadier Malik, head of intelligence. Colonel Ahmed, strategic planning. The political wing. Minister Rashid Ali, finance. Secretary Mahmood, foreign affairs. Commissioner Khan, Internal Security, the Business Wing. Seth Ahmad, Textile Empire. Malik Farouk, Construction Magnate. Sardar Jan, Agricultural Monopoly. Each man believed he was her only confidant. None realized they were pieces on her chessboard. Chapter 3. The Shadow Government, the Real Decision Makers. By 1968, an extraordinary phenomenon had emerged. Pakistan had two governments. The official government, visible to the public, held press conferences, made speeches, signed documents. The shadow government, controlled by Sultana, made the real decisions, controlled policy direction, determined national priorities. The process was seamless. Every major decision would first be discussed in Sultana's drawing room. She would consult with her network, analyze the political implications, and then guide her lovers to the right conclusion. The next day, the official government would announce the decision as their own. The secret council meetings every Friday evening. Sultana hosted what she called poetry sessions. Officially, it was a cultural gathering where Pakistan's elite came to appreciate Urdu literature. In reality, it was Pakistan's real cabinet meeting. The format was brilliant. Guests would mingle and exchange information. Sultana would float policy ideas as philosophical discussions. Decisions would be reached through casual conversations. By the end of the evening, consensus would emerge on major issues. The genius lay in the deniability. No official records existed. No formal votes were taken. No constitutional violations occurred. The power behind the throne, the extent of Sultana's control, became clear during the 1969 political crisis. When student protests threatened to destabilize the government, the official leadership was paralyzed. While ministers panicked and generals prepared for martial law, Sultana took control. Her solution was masterful. She convinced the general to show restraint. She persuaded the finance minister to announce economic reforms. She arranged secret negotiations with student leaders. She orchestrated a media campaign that painted the government as responsive. The crisis was resolved in 72 hours. The public credited the government's wisdom. The politicians celebrated their leadership skills. Only a select few knew the truth. A woman operating from the shadows had saved the nation. Chapter 4. The Dangerous Games, the Foreign Intrigue. Sultana's influence inevitably attracted international attention. Foreign intelligence agencies realized that to influence Pakistan, they needed to influence her. The American approach was direct. CIA operative James Morrison arrived in Islamabad with orders to establish contact with the Shadow Empress. His cover was perfect, cultural attaché with a passion for Urdu poetry. At her Friday salon, Morrison recited Caleb's verses with surprising fluency. Sultana, impressed by his cultural knowledge, engaged him in conversation. What followed was a battle of wits disguised as romantic courtship. Morrison, trained in psychological manipulation, tried to seduce her with promises of American support for her ambitions. Sultana, equally skilled, played the game while extracting valuable intelligence about American intentions in South Asia. The dangerous dance continued for months, each trying to use the other, both falling into a web of mutual fascination. The Russian gambit simultaneously. Soviet intelligence deployed their own weapon. Alexei Volkov, a charming diplomat with a reputation for seducing powerful women. Volkov's strategy was different. He appealed to her intellectual vanity. He praised her political insights, compared her to Catherine the Great, and suggested she could become a historic figure if aligned with the right global power. Sultana found herself in an unprecedented position, courted by two superpowers while controlling a third world nation. The triple game. The situation became explosive when all three men, the general, the American spy, and the Russian diplomat, attended the same poetry session. Sultana's performance that evening was legendary. She managed conversations with all three, giving each the impression of special attention while playing them against each other. By the end of the evening, the general believed she had rejected foreign advances out of patriotic loyalty. Morrison thought she was ready to provide intelligence on Soviet activities. Volkov was convinced she would share American secrets. In reality, she had committed to nothing while learning everything about all three intelligence operations. Chapter 5. The Price of Power, the Growing Resistance. By 1970, Sultana's invisible empire had grown too large to remain completely hidden. Whispers began to circulate in political circles about the mysterious woman who seemed to know everything and influence everyone. The religious establishment was the first to voice concerns. Maulana Rashid, a prominent religious leader, began delivering sermons about moral decay in high places and women who forget their proper role. The opposition politicians started investigating. They noticed patterns. Certain policy decisions seemed to benefit the same business interests. Military appointments followed suspicious patterns. Foreign policy shifts occurred after social events. The younger military officers grew restless. Brigadier Hassan Ali, a principled officer, began documenting what he saw as compromised decision-making in the high command. The jealousy factor. Sultana's biggest vulnerability wasn't political. It was personal. As her network expanded, the men in her inner circle began to suspect each other. The general's growing paranoia. Ahmad Hassan started noticing how well-informed other officials seemed to be about military matters. His jealousy transformed from romantic to professional. He began to suspect Sultana was sharing secrets. The minister's moral crisis. Rashid Ali, the finance minister, was torn between his devotion to Sultana and his guilt about betraying state secrets. His wife had begun asking uncomfortable questions about his late-night meetings. The international pressure. Both Morrison and Volkov were under pressure from their superiors to show concrete results. Their romantic patience was running out, replaced by professional urgency. The first crack. The crisis began with a seemingly minor incident. During a routine cabinet meeting, the finance minister mentioned a policy idea that Sultana had discussed with him privately the night before. The general, who was also present, recognized the idea. It was something he had discussed with Sultana weeks earlier as a military strategy, not an economic policy. The realization hit like lightning. She was sharing information between them, manipulating both their decisions. That evening, the general confronted Sultana in her apartment. "Who else knows about Operation Crescent?" he demanded, referring to a classified military plan. Sultana's response was masterful. She neither confirmed nor denied, but instead redirected his anger toward external threats. "Darling," she whispered, moving closer to him, "why are you suspicious of me when the real threat comes from those who want to destroy what we've built together?" The general wanted to resist, but her proximity, her perfume, her touch, everything conspired against his rational mind. Chapter 6. The Fall of the Shadow Empress. The conspiracy unfolds. By late 1970. 3 separate groups had begun investigating Sultana's activities. The Religious Coalition, led by Maulana Rashid, the military reformers, led by Brigadier Hassan Ali, the political opposition, led by veteran politician Ghulam Sarwar, unknown to each other. All 3 groups had reached the same conclusion. The Shadow Empress had to be stopped. The intelligence breakthrough. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Sultana's housekeeper, Fatima Bibi, who had been secretly recording conversations for months. Fatima, a deeply religious woman, had become increasingly disturbed by what she witnessed in the house. The final straw came when she overheard Sultana discussing military secrets with the Russian diplomat. The recordings revealed detailed conversations about classified military operations, discussions of bribes and influence, peddling evidence of foreign intelligence connections, proof of systematic manipulation of government decisions. Fatima took the recordings to Maulana Rashid, who immediately recognized their significance. The perfect storm. The conspiracy reached its climax during Sultana's most ambitious salon, a grand evening celebrating the cultural renaissance of Pakistan. The guest list read like a who's who of power. General Ahmad Hassan, Minister Rashid Ali, CIA operative James Morrison, Soviet diplomat Alexei Volkov, 20 other high-ranking officials. What none of them knew was that Fatima Bibi had planted recording devices throughout the house. As the evening progressed, Sultana orchestrated her usual magic, moving between groups, sharing secrets, extracting information, building consensus on a new foreign policy initiative. It was her masterpiece and her undoing. The trap is sprung at exactly 11 p.m. The lights went out. When emergency generators restored power, the house was surrounded by military police led by Brigadier Hassan Ali. By order of the Supreme Court of Pakistan, the brigadier announced, all present are under investigation for treason and violation of the Official Secrets Act. The chaos was immediate. Ministers demanding diplomatic immunity, diplomats claiming violation of international law, businessmen protesting their innocence. But all eyes were on Sultana. For the first time in 5 years, the Shadow Empress had been caught in the light. The final confrontation as the guests were arrested or escorted away, Sultana found herself alone with General Ahmad Hassan. The man who had been her first conquest, her most powerful ally, had become her final judge. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" he asked, his voice heavy with betrayal. Sultana's response revealed the true depth of her character. Even in defeat, she remained defiant, magnificent, unrepentant. "I never betrayed Pakistan," she declared. "I made this country stronger, more prosperous, more respected. While you played with toys like uniforms and titles, I was building real power. And the secrets you sold," the general demanded. "I sold nothing. I traded information to protect Pakistan's interests. Every conversation, every relationship, every decision was calculated to benefit our nation." For a moment, the general wavered. Even now, her voice had the power to stir something deep within him. But the evidence was overwhelming. The final scene as dawn broke over Islamabad, Sultana was led away in handcuffs. The Shadow Empress who had controlled Pakistan from the darkness was finally dragged into the light. The newspapers would call it the scandal of the century. The politicians would promise reform. The military would pledge greater security. But everyone who had known her carried a secret shame. For a brief moment in history, a single woman had proven that power belonged not to titles or institutions, but to those smart enough to take it. The Shadow Empress was gone, but her legacy remained, a warning and an inspiration to anyone who dared to challenge the established order. The most powerful woman in Pakistan's history disappeared as mysteriously as she had appeared, leaving behind only whispers, legends, and the eternal question. In the game of power, was she a patriot or a traitor? A visionary or a criminal? A hero or a villain? The answer, like the woman herself, remains shrouded in shadow. Epilogue. The legend lives on 50 years later. The story of the Shadow Empress continues to fascinate Pakistan. Some say she was a foreign spy who nearly destroyed the nation. Others claim she was a misunderstood patriot who tried to modernize the country. The truth, as always, is more complex than the legend. Sultana Begum was a woman of extraordinary ability who refused to accept the limitations society placed on her gender. In a world where power was the privilege of men, she found a way to claim it for herself. Her methods were questionable, her ethics debatable, her loyalty uncertain. But her impact was undeniable. For 5 years, from the shadows, a single woman shaped the destiny of 100 million people. She proved that in the right circumstances, with the right skills, and the right ambition, anyone can change history. The Shadow Empress is gone, but her message echoes through time. Power is not given. It is taken. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one no one sees coming. The story of the Shadow Empress remains one of Pakistan's most fascinating political mysteries. What lessons does her rise and fall teach us about power, ambition, and the price of greatness? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.